What did we learn about the 49ers when they absolutely smashed the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday night in primetime? Did you know it was in primetime, Sunil? It was in primetime they smashed the Dallas Cowboys. What did we learn about that game? You and I need to talk about this Randy Gregory trade. I think there's multiple angles that haven't necessarily been talked about, at least by me yet, that I want to bring up on this channel. And then just how good is this 49er team? It is the best 49er team since when? We're going to answer those questions plus more next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday night, and I got my guy, So Real, Fred Warner, in the building. What's up, Sunil?
Got to give it up to the boy, to the man. I don't know if you watched, if you got a chance to watch the sounds from the sideline.
I have not watched it yet. No.
Oh man, it got me re-pumped up. Even though I knew what went on in the game, I knew how it finished, but just the camaraderie and how much fun they have on the sidelines was really epic. This team is really special, man.
It really is special. We're going to talk about how special this team is. What topic should we start with? I almost feel like we should just kind of put a cap on the game, and we can do that with our awards.
Yeah,
Pause.
let's do that.
Let's do that. Here we go. It's award show time. We have 5 awards that we give out. 4 awards we give out every week. I was just trying to throw an extra award in there. We have a Step It Up award, which is to a player that needs to step it up, player, coach, what have you. We have a Jekyll and Hyde award that is going to a player, coach that maybe did something that we didn't expect, or, in a good or a bad way, I guess. We have the most underrated player award. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. And then we have the MVP of the game. Let's start with Step It Up. Full warning, tough. I cheated here, but go ahead. You
start then, because I had a tough time, right? So I had a tough time. I mean,
let's just go with who I picked, because I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna. It is a little bit cheating, but I think it's fun also. The Step It Up award to this game goes to the Dallas Cowboys. You guys absolutely freaking suck. You're awful. Step it up. You want to beat the San Francisco 49ers? This game meant the world to you, you said? Dak Prescott said how pissed he was. Now it's personal for Parsons? No. 42-10. You got ramrodded out of the building. Step it up, Dallas Cowboys. You're the only players on the field that left on Sunday that needed to step it up. Is that fair? You agree?
Look, maybe we need to have Trey Lance step it up, because clearly the playbook that he was giving him didn't do anything for the defense. So maybe there's a reason why he got traded. I don't know. Like, maybe he didn't know the playbook as much as we thought he did.
Oh, man, you're a smooth criminal for that one. Not going to lie. Not going to lie. All right. Let's get into the actual awards, because when you win 42-10, I'm sorry. We're going to bend the rules a little bit. We're not going to give a Step It Up award to an actual player on the 49ers unless something awful happened. So, yeah, Step It Up award goes to the Dallas Cowboys. There is a Jekyll and Hyde award, and I think this one we can go multiple different ways. I'm going to let you start with this one. Who is your Jekyll and Hyde award going to?
Yeah, I mean, once again, just for people that are new to this segment that we put so much production into, the Jekyll and Hyde award is is an award where we pick a player, group, or coach that either are playing better than they usually do, or are going either way when it comes to Jekyll and Hyde, good or bad, right? And I'm going to give the award to a group this time. And I'm going with the offensive line. and this is why I want to give it to the offensive line, Jesse. Going into this game, the Cowboys were averaging 3.5 sacks per game. They were touted as the best defense in the league, and a big part of that defense was their defensive line. They had Micah Parsons, who, obviously was, in the runnings for Defensive Player of the Year last year. Wreaks havoc, one of the best defensive players in the league. Well, this offensive line only allowed for 1 sack, and Micah Parsons was insignificant. Basically, his stat line was all zeros except for, I think he had 1 hurry or something like that. So for a offensive line that I think consistently gets maligned as the weakest link on this team, that rarely gets any credit for how good they actually are, to go up against a defensive pass rush that is, went out and had 7 sacks again, in week 1 against the Giants. I got to give props to those big boys up front. Micah Parsons wanted nothing to do with Trent Williams. I felt like even Colton McKivitz, you didn't hear his name at all, which is a great sign for offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So to me, I think they deserve to have that Jekyll and Hyde award. If they continue to play this way, Jesse, this offense is going to keep cooking.
Yeah, most certainly. My Jekyll and Hyde award goes to a player that I think you and I both believe this player is good, but it's Jekyll and Hyde because this player doesn't play a lot, but when they do, they always play good. So it's more Jekyll and Hyde based off of circumstances versus talent, in my opinion. And that's Jordan Mason. I mean, listen, this guy led the team in rushing in his limited carries this week. I get some of it was in garbage time, and we're going to talk about him later, so I don't want to get fully into it, but he's a really good football player. And I think that he brings an element to this team that they don't necessarily have without him. And I hope that his playing time continues to go up from here. I'm hoping that he earned that this week. Like I said, we'll talk about him specifically more, but I have to give it to Mason. He was phenomenal.
Absolutely. Can't disagree with that.
Who is your most underrated player award going to this week?
I'm going to go with another player that I've already given this award to.
It's fine.
And he gets so overlooked because of the guy that he's next to, and rightfully so, man. He's playing next to Big 5'4", the king, as I guess we're calling him from now on. Dre Greenlaw. Jesse, Dre Greenlaw's closing speed is phenomenal.
So good.
It's like he had a play. I think it was for a sack, or I think it was for a sack. It was definitely a loss behind. It was a tackle for loss for sure. I think it was a sack though. But he's running horizontally, and then he sees. I think it was the Dak go out, and the way that he beeline just straight for Dak and got the tackle, it was phenomenal, man. When you could see that kind of speed on camera, you know that's super fast. And he obviously is kind of like, sometimes he doesn't channel that aggression quite well. He had a play early in the game where it could have been a flag, and he's always teetering on that. But man, the game that he had, it was, it would have been a game that everybody talked about. The only thing was Fred Warner had, a historic game at right next to him. But Dre Greenlaw, to me, man, super underrated what he's able to do and how much he makes this defense so much scarier. To me, they're the best linebacking duo in the league by far. It'd be interesting because both of them, you can make a case that both of them could be all pros this year, which is crazy to have 2 from the same team.
Well, and Greenlaw was this close to making it last year. He was like 2 votes away. So, and he's playing better this year than he was last year. And I don't know if you remember, but Fred Warner came out very early this year and said, whatever you think of me, you should think of Greenlaw as well. That's how good he is. So if you think I'm fantastic, if you think I'm an all-pro, you should think the exact same thing about Dre Greenlaw. And it's funny that you chose to go with a player that plays next to Fred Warner as your underrated player award, because I also chose to go with a player that plays next to Fred Warner. And I'm going with the other linebacker, Oren Burks. Oren Burks. So Roscoe and I, Roscoe, we had this conversation on, it was either Monday or Sunday after the game. I can't remember. But we were just talking about Oren Burks and how well he's played. Oren Burks right now is on pace to play the most defensive snaps he's ever played in a season. Remember, Azeez Al-Shaair, we thought could be a big loss depending on how they replaced him. I don't think many people felt overly excited about Oren Burks being that replacement on the surface. I think we looked everywhere but at Oren Burks. We looked at Oren Burks as a special teamer, and he kind of started out that way. The first 2 weeks, he had like 13 total snaps, something like that. Since then, he went like 21 snaps, 19 snaps, and 25 snaps, I believe, and it's just starting to really ramp it up. And it was a defense filled with second-tier players going against Dallas's first-team offense, and Oren Burks getting the pick in that game. And it wasn't just that play that he played well. Like I said, he played around 25 snaps. He is not being talked about. And you talked about offensive linemen not being talked about and how that's a good thing. I would say for somebody that is playing next to two possible all-pros to not be an issue should be pointed out as well. Oren Burks is playing very, very good football for being that third guy in the linebacking core.
Two things on Oren Burks. So one, people might forget that he was drafted in the same draft class as Fred Warner. Yep. Same round, 15 picks apart. And much like Fred Warner, Oren Burks was a safety that turned into a linebacker. So a lot of the same attributes that Fred Warner has as far as the range to be able to cover, plus have that ability to still be a tackling machine and be a disruptor. Oren Burks has all of that. And one thing that I'm learning is it's not a fluke that the 49ers linebackers are the way that they are. Whomever is coaching up these linebackers knows what they're doing. And the reason why I'm surprised by it, Jesse, is because initially we thought it was Saleh. Then we thought it was DeMeco, who were both, linebacker coaches in their time and known for that, right? Obviously, DeMeco Ryans is one of the best linebackers in history, but they don't miss. They don't miss. They just let multiple linebackers go this offseason, Azeez being one of them. But, they let a few go that people thought were going to be the replacements, and they just keep stacking them there. And the second thing is, if you listen to that, because I'm sure you will get to it sooner or later, but when they did the sounds from the sideline, Fred Warner said, "We don't have any backup linebackers. We're all playmakers." And that's how I believe they feel like but there's no backups. Everybody's a playmaker. When you get in, it never stops. That's how they think the linebacking core is, and they're starting to prove it in their play as well.
Yeah, certainly. Well, the one constant when it comes to the linebackers is the linebacker coach, and that's Johnny Holland. He was here in 2017 and then came back, and he's been here since 2021. I think he's the constant so far, and he deserves a lot of credit for the development. And the 49ers have a type. They definitely have a type, and it's a ex-safety. If you played safety and converted a linebacker, the 49ers are interested in you. Well, I don't know about you. We'll see what you do for your MVP, you can go multiple different ways. The reason I'm going with this player is kind of my tiebreaker is last week. I had Brock Purdy, so I didn't want to go with him again just for the sake of switching it up. And this was the best defensive performance we've seen all season. So let's just stick with the linebackers. Fred Warner, MVP, forced fumble, interception. You're wearing the jersey. And not only that, but if you watch the game, he's constantly carrying receivers up the seam. There was multiple checkdowns from Dak that were a result of them trying to go to a receiver up the seam, and they just couldn't do it because Fred was right there carrying the receiver like it was nothing. So Fred Warner played amazing football, absolutely deserves to be MVP. He was the tone setter in that game for sure.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that, with the game that Fred Warner had. Obviously, the trifecta. He's the quarterback of that defense, and like you said, that defense had the best game that they've had. Well, even though you said because you gave it to him last time, the quarterback of the offense also had the best game that they've ever had, and the level of difficulty was raised higher than any defense that they've played up until this point, allegedly, right? I have to give it to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is constantly the media and fan base and things like that are constantly waiting for Brock Purdy to fail, right? There was all of this talk, oh, yeah, Brock Purdy's doing this, but it's part of Kyle Shanahan's system. Brock Purdy's doing this, but look at the defenses that he's going to. Brock Purdy's doing this, but look at the weapons that he has. Well, this was the game that allegedly Brock Purdy was going to get was going to get exposed, right? He's going up against the top defense, and the only thing that was exposed was Brock Purdy's Timothy, right? Brock Purdy is the guy. For me, this game, Jesse, no questions about Brock Purdy ever. I mean, I personally didn't really have. I already saw that this was the guy. But now I think where I just thought, he was perfect for Kyle Shanahan, and him and Kyle Shanahan will make this offense. Now I think Brock Purdy can literally elevate players as well. And I know that's hard to say because you're like, well, look at the players that he's throwing to. But the throws he was making, Jesse, the time he was creating, his awareness, his confidence, it's only going to get better. And we've seen, 12 games of him now? He hasn't thrown an interception since January 1st. So it's like 8 games, including playoffs, or 9 games, including the playoff, Jesse. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, how much time do you need? If the guy's consistently doing the same thing over and over, regardless of who's on the other side of the ball, to me, I'm extremely happy he's the quarterback of our team. And yeah, I mean, look, they took all the starters out in the fourth quarter. They could have easily put a 50 burger on these guys if they kept everybody out there. So to me, I give it to Brock Purdy. I'm not mad at the Fred Warner MVP, but you got to give Brock Purdy credit for continuing to shut up the haters, even when, supposedly this was the toughest challenge that he was going to have.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, the only reason I didn't go with him is because I went with him last week and I wanted to switch it up. And Fred Warner, I think, was certainly the MVP of the defense. I figured if I went Fred Warner, you would go opposite, and you did. So that's perfect. We, as much production as we have, we don't have a pre-production meeting. So, we do a pretty good job, though, of making sure that we spread the love for all the 49ers. Tua brings up a great question here and says, just want to know, do you think Brock Purdy might be the first QB since Shanny was the coach of this team to play in a Pro Bowl? Well, it's funny you say that because during the offseason, I think we had a Pro Bowl topic. I don't know if it was you and I, Sunil. It might have been Grant and I, if I remember correctly. So it was over on his channel. But we talked about one player that we think could make a Pro Bowl that hadn't previously, and my pick was Brock Purdy. And I think that, and that was during the offseason. I think certainly we're starting to see that. And, a lot of it had to do preseason with, I didn't have a lot of respect for the quarterbacks in the NFC, but Brock Purdy certainly is showing that. I mean, if there was right now, if you just chose the top 5 quarterbacks to play in the Pro Bowl for the league, he'd be one of them also. So it really doesn't matter AFC or NFC. Brock Purdy's playing really good football. So yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, I just don't see his pace. I'm not saying 4 touchdowns every week or anything like that, but I just overall what he's doing for the first 5 games, I just don't see that pace slowing down. That's just me.
He could easily be close to 40 touchdowns this year because multiple touchdown games is not a problem for him. So I don't know. I do think that Jimmy made it to a Pro Bowl as an alternate. So I don't know if that counts. But my answer to that is,
did he though? I don't know that he did.
I think he did. I think he did. But I think
it might have been the Super Bowl year, but he couldn't go. Yeah. All right.
So that's why I think the answer to this is no, because I do think that Brock Purdy will be picked, but I do not think he will play in a Pro Bowl because he will be playing in the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. I love it. I love the optimism for sure. Spider Ombre says Steelers D, Dallas D, TJ, Micah. Okay. Hey, TJ
definitely is better than Micah right at this point.
Yeah, right, he put an imprint on that game on Sunday too. 49ers Throwback says my award goes to Kyle Shanahan. Let's go Niners. I'm actually shocked that the Shanahan himself over here didn't choose him. But
Shanahan's getting some praise. Don't worry, the show is still young. The awards are going to, anybody could have got. There's so many people to be awarded, right? Jake Moody still hasn't missed a kick. He might be the second greatest.
We've got a mystery question. I'm sure it's Shanahan related. This guy's
you'd be surprised. I think Jake Moody, the discussion might start. Is he the second greatest third round pick of the 49ers in history behind Fred Warner? That discussion is being brought up. I don't know by who, but it is being talked about.
By who? I don't know by who. You are the discussion. You're the only discussion. It's you. It's 100% you.
I'm the drama?
Yeah. You're the drama. It's you. Okay, let's talk about this trade for Randy Gregory. Now, when they traded for Gregory, I had put out a video immediately. I didn't know any of the details yet. I was just driving around, saw it come up on my phone. Just recorded a quick video giving my thoughts. Now that I know all the details, obviously, or as soon as I knew all the details, I was excited. It's a no-lose situation for the 49ers. And I like that they're willing to take a chance on a player who's maybe a little checkered. I'll say it that way. He's a little checkered in his past. I don't mind that. I actually kind of enjoy that. You don't need all choir boys on the team. I like Randy Gregory being on this team. But I'm going to phrase the question a little bit differently. Actually, you know what? First of all, I'll ask you, what did you think of the trade? And then I've got a follow-up question to that. So what did you think of the trade?
I mean, initially I was shocked, Jesse, because it was funny because I put up that morning a tweet, or I don't know what we're calling him, an X. I don't know what it is. But I put up something talking about that, the last time the 49ers had been 4-0, that they made they made it to the Super Bowl. One thing that they do is they pick the weakest group and they find a 1-year rental to be able to boost that group up. And I think we both thought the weakest link would be the secondary, and that would be who they go after for a 1-year rental. And then later on that day, the trade came out about Randy Gregory, and he's obviously on the D line. So I thought they would go after secondary, but when I saw it was Gregory, and then obviously same reaction you had when you saw the details, it was like, why not? Right? You're not even losing a pick. Like, you're just switching picks going from 6th to 7th. And we see what the 7th round has done for us, Brock Purdy, Ronnie Bell, Jawan Jennings. So 7th round picks actually do pretty well and make the team and actually make an impact for the 49ers. And look, we have 3 guys that we could depend on, right? We have Bosa, we have Armstead, we have Hargrave, even Kinlaw to a certain extent is balling out, but nobody's really taking hold of that edge on the other side of Bosa. We wanted Drake Jackson to be that guy. He showed some flashes in week 1, but been pretty non-existent since then. Cleveland Farrell shows flashes and whatnot. So there's an opportunity there. And Gregory is a 2nd round pick, just like Drake Jackson. Pretty similar to Drake Jackson in the sense that more of an athlete than like a skillful rusher of the passer, right? He's more strong and fast and has those moves and things like that. Raw talent, has shown flashes in the league. I think it's a 1-year rental with 0 risk. You're paying him less than $1 million. You don't lose a pick, and he could potentially be that Omenihu, be that Willis, those guys that have come in and produced. And if he can, oh my God, this defensive line can even get better. Like, the defense could actually even get better with the guy if he's able to unlock anything that he's capable of.
Yeah, and I see these comments. Brandon Simmons, he got busted for weed. Weed is not a drug. I get all of that, but when you know it violates a substance abuse policy and you get busted for it not once but twice and suspended, I'm sorry. Like you being a professional gets called into question. It's not about how bad it is in the court of public opinion. I could care less if somebody smokes weed. Like doesn't bother me at all. But when you're not supposed to do it and you've already been suspended for it once and then you get suspended for it a second time, it's worth questioning. Is your head really in it? So it's not about what he did. It's just about the rule's the rule, and he broke the rule not once, but twice. So yeah, I would say that his past is a little bit checkered, not in the sense of he's a bad person or we're dealing with a criminal, but in the sense that he's a professional and chose twice to get suspended for not being a professional. That's just what it is. So that's where I'm coming from on this. But the Randy Gregory trade is, like I said, it's a zero loss situation. I mean, okay, let's say he doesn't pan out or he's a malcontent. Let's the worst case scenario. He just hates being here and doesn't play well and doesn't show up to practice or something crazy happens, which I highly doubt is going to happen. But let's say that happens. Okay, cool. You paid him $1 million. Get off the team. Like it's really not that. It's not a big deal at all. This is a major upgrade. He's a hell of a player. But I want to ask you in this sense. So I agree with you. I was very surprised that this trade happened, especially because the day before it was being reported that he was just going to be cut. So I expected he was just going to be on the open market. And if the 49ers wanted him, they can go get him. Saying all of that, though, I don't think the 49ers are necessarily done dealing because they didn't spend a lot of money here. They really didn't even waste a draft pick. They have pretty much all the same assets that they had just a few days ago when they made this trade. But let's assume this is the only trade that they are going to make. We talked about realistic trade possibilities last week. And I think both of us came up with corners in that. We've talked about big splash trades a couple weeks ago, and we continually talk about the trade deadline. If this is the only move that they make, are you satisfied with that?
I agree with you that I don't think they're done dealing. I think they're going to get another 1-year rental. I still think that they're going to get some depth for that cornerback room.
I'm sorry, Brandon. I don't mean to yell at you.
Satisfied is a tough one because I do think that this defense, what they have on the roster right now, is good enough to win a Super Bowl. However, I would feel more comfortable, Jesse, if they did make a move and bring in another corner, because we don't know what the answers are. Like if Womack and Luter were healthy, I would be fine, like get comfortable, and we saw what they're capable of and all that kind of stuff. I do believe in Womack. I don't know anything about Luther because we haven't seen him play. So I would be more comfortable if they did make a move and bring in a capable corner. But if they don't, I'm not gonna hold it against them at the end of the year because I think that this defense, the depth and all of that is good enough to win. So yeah, Luter's healthy. I thought he's still on the IR. Did they take him off?
I don't remember if they opened the window or what's going on with him. Was his pup or I'd have to look at it again. He might be fully healthy. I'm not sure. Either way, though, I'd be a little disappointed, just a little bit. We had this talk just a couple weeks ago about the trade deadline, and we kind of went back and forth. It started the first one we talked about the Patrick Surtain trade, and you weren't necessarily for it. I was. We had our reasons. That's fine. Then we talked last week about realistic trade possibilities. This was a topic that you wanted to bring up. 3rd round pick or later, who's a realistic trade possibility? So we talked through that. When we talked about that, I had mentioned that the problem with this team is that we truly don't know if they would have won a Super Bowl last year. And that leaves the door open. if this team had won a Super Bowl last year, Brock Purdy hadn't gotten hurt, and we knew the answer to that, whether they won or lost, we would know what needs to happen at the trade deadline. If they didn't beat the Eagles and lost that game anyways, probably as good as this team looks, knowing that the Eagles are undefeated and then Kansas City, who beat the Eagles, are looking like the best team still in the AFC, you would say, all right, we probably need to make a little bit bigger move than Gregory, especially being that you lost to the Chiefs last year in big fashion. I know Purdy wasn't the quarterback, but either way, it happened. If they had won the Super Bowl, you would say, hey, we know this team's good enough to win a Super Bowl. We can kind of roll it back. We'll add a little piece here or there with Gregory, some of the offseason additions. That should be good enough to keep us going. We feel good about it. But you would have the answer. But because Brock Purdy got injured and we don't have that answer of what the results of this team would have been, Sunil, I think that puts us in limbo. And again, for me, I would rather go make a little bit bigger move than Gregory and not need it than need it and not have it. And that's where I'm at with it, especially seeing how good this team is right now. Yes, they look damn near unbeatable. I don't think that is necessarily the case. Any team can be beat any given Sunday. But realistically, I think this team can potentially be beat by a couple teams late in the playoffs or even a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying they will be beat by those teams. I definitely think the 49ers can win a Super Bowl. But I'd feel a lot more comfortable if they went and added a piece that gives them a clear upgrade somewhere. So,
yeah, and I agree with you. And look, the closer it gets to the trade deadline, the cheaper these pieces are going to be. And one thing that we can trust John Lynch to do is get a good deal on a trade, right? He doesn't usually lose trades that often. And there's going to be some teams that are going to be in sell mode pretty quickly here. We're already seeing like the Vikings are possibly gonna like making moves and gonna start probably trading away guys, especially Kirk Cousins. I think the Giants are gonna be in sell mode here pretty soon. Like some of these teams that want to get some assets and tank without tanking because the quarterback class is gonna be so good. There's gonna be some available pieces, I think, Jesse, and I think both of us are saying corner, right? Where that's the only place where I think they do need like another piece is in that cornerback room. And not because Ward and Diamado Lenore aren't playing lights out, because I don't think I would want somebody that starts over those two. But in case one of those two get injured, it would be nice to have someone that you could feel like you could rely on to jump in and take over some reps.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brother Bob comes in and says, jumping in, but the prediction is Niners 44, Stains 6, calling them brown stains. I love it. But Brother Bob, listen, I'm going to need you to cool it out a little bit tomorrow. All right. I have not only a content creator coming on, but he is a big time like radio guy over with Cleveland. Like he's big. And he's like one of those guys that is like, he's very professional. I don't know how he would take the banter from you. And I certainly don't want to not read the super chats. I'm just warning you now, just tone it back a little bit with him. That's all I'm asking. All right. I appreciate you. Okay. But this is what I love about Brother Bob. He holds everybody accountable, including myself. Like he just threw in like a cheap shot comment about the Cincinnati Bengals because I picked Cincinnati to win the Super Bowl this year. So he's very fair in his trash talk. So I will give him that. All right. We talked about Mason earlier. And I think we both agree that Mason's a really good player. We would like to see him play more. The question I have for you, though, is it time to give up on the Mitchell project and just bypass him and go straight to Mason? And then if Mason gets hurt or can't cut it, you go back to Mitchell if he's healthy. Like, are you ready to just say, hey, Mason should be the number 2 running back? It is what it is. Mitchell, you did great for us. You just can't stay healthy. Maybe, quite frankly, you're not even as good as Mason at this point, and just roll with Mason as the number 2 guy and give him more reps? Or would you go back to Mitchell and kind of mix it in? What would you do with the running back situation?
I don't think it matters. What I think the real question is how much should either of these running backs get be instilled more in the offense to give Christian McCaffrey more of a rest, right? And I like
you answer my question first, and then I'll answer your question.
Well, I mean, look, the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
So I think that Mason deserves it just because he's there every single game. Yeah. And Mitchell, Mitchell has shown more than Mason, I would say, as far as his ability when he's playing, but he isn't available enough. And I think it's tough when a guy's playing every 3 games or every 4 games, or you can't depend on him. I think it's hard to call plays because Mitchell and Mason are 2 very different style runners, right? Mason is more of that bruiser. Mitchell has a little bit more finesse to his game, even though he can, be a bruiser as well. But yeah, I mean, I personally think out of the 2, because Mason's availability, as well as, the more he gets run, the better he's showing out. Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think that's a dumb move to make to move Mason to number 2 and have him, be the first one to relieve CMC.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just he's so different than anything else that is on the roster. I mean, he's a thumper, and he really does. I'm sorry. If somebody has the skills to just Photoshop Seattle Seahawk jersey on him, you would think that it's Lynch. I mean, he runs just like him. He's very violent. He's much faster than you expect. He's actually a better pass catcher out of the backfield than you would expect. He's just a really good football player. And I know that CMC is so good. I mean, we just talked a couple weeks ago and said, hey, he's probably the best weapon since Jerry Rice on this team. And that's above T.O. That's how good CMC is. But you are right. Everybody does need a breather. And I'm going to answer your question. Yes, they should give him a breather, even if it's an 80-20, just something. Give him more time off because, of course, when you have somebody as dynamic as CMC, who's the best running back in the game, when you go from the best running back in the game, even if you go to the second best running back in the game for 20% of those snaps, you have a drop-off. So it's going to be a bit of a drop-off. But the drop-off is not so big, and Mason is not so under-talented that he deserves nothing. He's a closer. He's a very good football player, and I think he can do all the things that you need him to do in order for him to get plays throughout a game and just preserve CMC a little bit more. I really, really like Mason. My only question with him, and it wasn't because of anything he had done on the field, but during training camp, he was having a ton of fumbling issues out of nowhere. And then that led into a preseason game. And so I'm like, gosh, I don't know. Is this going to be a thing for him? He's been fine. So, yeah, I think Mason has earned the number 2 running back spot, and I really like Mitchell a lot. I just think Mason has been available. He's a little bit different than everybody else, and I think he does deserve to get more snaps. I think he's earned those.
And you're starting to see Kyle Shanahan understand that he needs to rest CMC. Even if CMC is on the field, you're starting to see Juszczyk be used more. You're starting to see CMC used more as a decoy, and you got to see, Mason be used more too. So I do think it's the evolution of the game, because ultimately, CMC, you want to make sure that he stays at his prime level throughout the season, and especially so he's like ramped up and healthy going into the playoffs. And ultimately, whoever number 2 is, you want them to feel confident to be an asset and be a playmaker going into the playoffs as well. So I want to develop Mason as that number 2 just because he's available more. So I trust that he'll be there come playoff time later on in the season, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, we've already given Elijah Mitchell a couple years, and it's the same type of process with him where, yeah, we know he could play if he's available, but he can't stay available.
Yeah, and Brandon, I would love to yell at you, but I've already yelled at you once and apologized, so I can't go back on that. But next show, if you want to make that comment, I'll yell at you then, okay? All right. Brother Bob says, grew up in shitty Cleveland, and can I give him my prediction? Yes, of course you can give your prediction. Of course you can give your prediction. Just
maybe brother Bob,
you always come up with a nickname for everybody, and
maybe choose different emojis.
Yeah. There you go. We'll see. I mean, maybe he comes on and he's very free and laid back, and just feel it out. Read the room is all I'll say. You're an adult. Read the room. Okay. Here's the title of the show. What did we learn about the San Francisco 49ers in the blowout win against the Dallas Cowboys, the once rival Dallas Cowboys? For us 90s babies, they are certainly a rivalry. I think for anybody born after the 90s would not see it that way. They don't know anything about the Cowboys being a rivalry, and the Cowboys, quite frankly, haven't earned being a rivalry at this point because they can't beat the 49ers. So what did we learn about the 49ers in that game on Sunday, in your opinion?
One thing, Jesse, that has been a constant since we've been working together is I've always looked for this team to be able to put 4 quarters of football together consistently, right? And last season, even though the team was very dominant, they tended to struggle putting up points in the first half, and then they would beat teams. And, they obviously had that record of how few points they allowed in the second half. What I learned about this team is this is the most complete team that Kyle Shanahan has ever had. Mm-hmm. This team can score the ball with ease, and this team can stop the ball with ease. This team has studs at special teams that, George Odom, he could have gotten most underrated player award as well for how well he played on special teams. I think he had like 5 tackles on special teams or something like that. Ronnie Bell was playing lights out on special teams. Like, obviously we got, Moody, the second greatest 3rd round pick in 49ers history. It's just the streets have been talking. I don't know who said that. I read that somewhere, but but I heard like the Moody jerseys are about to sell off but anyways, this team is complete, Jesse, and with all the trash talk that was going on before this game, right? From the Dallas fans, all this kind of stuff. This team is great trash talkers, but they were focused. They understood the challenge ahead of them. They were prepared. And one thing that I think has always been a criticism about this team from people like you and other critics of my guy, Kyle Shanahan, is that this team had the ability to be outcoached. And I don't think they have the ability to be outcoached anymore, Jesse. I think now they have the complete package where the players on the field in all phases, the coaching staff on the sideline. I think Kyle Shanahan has taken great strides to elevate his game, and obviously the natural evolution of being a coach for as long as he's been. The addition of Brock Purdy really solves the biggest question mark that he has had his whole tenure here with the 49ers. This is the most complete team. That's what I learned. And there's no reason why this team shouldn't win a Super Bowl as long as they're healthy, because I don't look at, and I know you said there's a few teams that you feel like could beat this team, but I don't think there's a team in this league that the 49ers can't beat.
Oh, that I agree with.
If they are healthy and playing the way that they've been playing these last 5 games.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, what I learned about this team, I got confirmation about this team, what I kind of suspected, which was as great as they were playing and being 4-0. It sounded kind of crazy when week in and week out, I kept saying, God, I think there's a little bit more to this team. I think that they can do more. I think they can score more. I think that their defense can play just a little bit better. I know they're holding teams to 14.5 points. I know they're scoring more than 30 every week. But I feel like this team is so good that there's another gear to this team. And we found that out on Sunday. In what should have been the biggest test. What was the biggest test? I mean, it was the biggest test out of the 5 games that they have played. Let's not take away from it after the fact. Let's not act like Dallas is awful after the fact. Let's not pretend that we didn't think this would be the biggest test going into it. It absolutely was. They just prepared. They studied harder than they had ever studied, and they aced the exam. It doesn't make the test any less hard. The 49ers came out and were more dominant in what should have been their toughest game than they had been all season long, Sunil. And that tells me that they did have an extra gear that they could go into. And I thought it was there. They just needed to prove it was there for me to be like, okay, it's there. It's definitely there. It is definitely there. And, you know, I had a conversation with Ryan 2 weeks ago, and it was right after. It sounded crazy at the time because it was right after Miami put up 70 against the Broncos. And I said, I know that they just put up 70, but do you think this offense can do or hang with the Miami Dolphins? And it was a tough sell at that point. It really was. And I'm not saying that they're the same. They're not necessarily, they don't have the speed that the Dolphins have. They do it differently. But I just felt like this team was leaving points on the board, as crazy as it sounded. And I felt like they could be scoring 40 every week. Well, guess what? They can score 40 every single week. They could have the first 4 weeks. They didn't. They did this week when it mattered most. This team, as like I said, I thought had another gear. They proved to me they did have another gear, Sunil.
And we know that Kyle Shanahan is one to only show what he needs to show. So I think that in these tougher games, Jesse, you'll see that more often, because I think Kyle Shanahan, like he calls the game based off of who he's playing. Mm-hmm. So he didn't need to do all of the things that he did against the Cowboys. He respects, obviously, the Cowboys defense. So he showed a different game plan, I think. And I think there was a quote that just I was reading before we got on air is Kyle Shanahan's confidence level in Purdy, that he feels like he could call anything in his playbook with Purdy. Well, we know that bag is deep with Shanahan. And I think that as these, I think that you'll see a different level when you play Baltimore, a different level when they play the Eagles, a different level when they play, these tougher matchups. Because to me, Jesse, I think that he doesn't want to put everything on film till he has to, right? And I think he's very strategic with that. And that's probably why we saw them, why sometimes it maybe looks like they're holding back.
Yeah, most certainly. Brandon Simmons says, Jesse, you think Mason is better than Beast Mode? No. I'm Beast Mode. Beast Mode's a very, very good player. I just think that Mason runs similar to him. They look very similar. And I think that he can be a good player in this league. There was some other comments I had to start because these were pretty funny. Brock's here. Thank you for finding time to come here, Brock. I appreciate you. He said, we learned that I'm a top 5 quarterback and I'm just being modest. Fair enough. You've earned whatever you want, Brock. You have a spot on this channel whenever you want. Soul Certified says, Vish knows about the rivalry. Don't be surprised. 2 things. 1, Vish is a historian. I don't think all fans are historians. I know that when I was growing up, I always made arguments for guys like Wilt Chamberlain being the best basketball player of all time, Jim Brown being the best running back of all time. And the pushback I often got from people that were my age were like, well, we never saw them play, or they were playing against plumbers and they didn't even, there was a bunch of things. They were playing against, Wilt Chamberlain was playing against everybody that was 6 foot. And it's like, no, he wasn't. Like, you just do a little bit of research. You'll know that that's not true. Not everybody's a historian of the game. And knowing about the rivalry and actually feeling the rivalry also, I believe, are 2 different things. So, yeah, credit to Vish. Like I said, he's a historian. I don't think everybody is Soul Certified, but very, very good comment nonetheless. And then Jimmy Kwan says, I learned that San Francisco is absolutely scary when multiple players get a shot with the ball. Dallas's defense had no answers after they minimized CMC. I appreciate you, Jesse, as well as Grant, Larry, Coach, and Stats. Jimmy, thank you. I appreciate you for the support. And that's a very good point. Dallas really made it a point to stop CMC. And I think they did about as good of a job as you could. But it just showed that even if you pull CMC out of the game plan a little bit, I guess, he's still on the field. So you have to account for him. And if you're counting everything towards him, you got somebody like Kittle who had done almost nothing all season, going 3 for 3 on touchdowns. You got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got Jennings, you got Mason, you got Brock Purdy pulling the trigger. Like, there's so much. They just come at you in waves. What are you going to do? I mean, there's not many, if any, teams that can truly match up with every weapon on this team. It's going to be very, very tough sledding for every team in the league week in and week out. And I don't envy those defensive coordinators that have to prepare for this team every single week. It's got to be tough. What do you do? Like, I'd be pissed if I had to play Madden. If I was playing Madden against somebody who chose the 49ers, I would be pissed. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you're not even showing you're a skilled player. Like, choose somebody that's even in the league with another team that I'm choosing. Like, oh yeah, just go take the cheat code team. Of course you're gonna win. Like, that's the way. So imagine facing it in real life. Like, that's what's happening right now. They're playing Madden with all these talented players. It's awesome to see. You mentioned it. You said that this team is the best Shanahan-led team in the 49er Shanahan era. Debo mentioned that as well. He said it was the best team he had played on. Let's not forget that the 2019 team went to the Super Bowl. 2019 team started 8-0. The 2019 team averaged 29.9 points per game. So for Debo to say that is very high praise. And I'll let you finish this sentence. This 49ers team is the best 49ers team since
the Super Bowl champs. I gotta say, because I was thinking, okay, Jim Harbaugh's teams were really good, but even with Kaepernick as the quarterback, right, those teams were electric. I don't think they had as many ways to win as this team does. Because even though Kaepernick obviously had his legs and that rushing attack was insane back then, and even 2019, that rushing attack was insane. I believe that this passing attack that the 49ers have is much better than the 2019 team, and much better than, what was it, 2012, 2013, one of the year that Kaepernick made to the Super Bowl as well. I think that this team is more complete than those two teams. And I think all the defenses are comparable, right? I mean, you could probably say one defense might be a little bit better here and there, but I think all three of those team defenses are pretty dominant. So, yeah, to me, this team is the best team since the Steve Young 94 49ers that won the Super Bowl.
It's a good team. There's been a lot of good teams since. I mean, I don't know. I hold a special place in my heart for the 98 49ers because, you know, they lost to the Falcons, who eventually went to the Super Bowl by 2, I believe. I think the score was like 20-18, and they lost Garrison Hurst very early in that game with a horrific broken leg. And I think that team, I mean, Minnesota was great that year. Denver obviously won the Super Bowl. I felt like that team was at least going to the Super Bowl and possibly would have won it. You know, Steve Young, Jerry Rice. I mean, we're talking all-time 49er greats. Can I put them above that team? Just because of the nostalgia, it's going to be hard for me, but I think I have to agree, man. I know it's only 5 games. There's so much that can happen. This comment is going to look really, really stupid if they lose in the divisional round or something, okay? I don't see that happening, but sure, I guess anything can happen, and until you actually win a Super Bowl or make it to a Super Bowl and prove it right, there's a lot that can go sideways, and it's very early on. You're just 5 weeks in, but you're right. I mean, this team, there's nothing this team doesn't have at this point. Absolutely nothing. They have an elite coaching staff. They have a very good special teams. They have an elite defense. They have an elite offense. Like, where are the holes? And no team is perfect, especially in the salary cap era, but man, they are about as close as it can get to perfect. This is definitely better than the 2019 team. just simply for the fact that Brock Purdy over Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, it's not like they've taken a back step on offensive weapons or defensive weapons since then. In fact, a lot of players have matured since then. Fred Warner is only getting better since then. Mm-hmm. Trent Williams is an upgrade over Staley. You've got CMC, who's an upgrade over Mostert. Although Mostert was really, really good that year, it took him until the final weeks and into the playoffs to really come onto the scene. Deebo Samuel is much better than what he was. Brandon Ayuk is certainly better than Emmanuel Sanders was. So, yeah, I think this team right now is certainly the best team in the Shanahan era. I would take it over any of those Harbaugh teams, which means now we're going to the 90s. I love that 98 team, and I really think they could have been special, but dude, this team is, I don't know, man. This team's just so damn complete. I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm going back to 94. Well, at least on paper, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, look, health is going to be the key. But as far as just ways to win, this team has multiple. You could stop the running game. They could beat you with the pass. You can, let's say you can stop the offense. They could beat you on defense. Let's say you score. They could outscore you, right? Special teams, they have a kicker now that's shown that he has the ability to, kick long field. It's just the punter, Wishnowsky has just been lights out, man. Everything is inside the 10. So they're executing at such a high level on all aspects of the game. Obviously there's a lot of recency bias, right? But we haven't seen this in quite some time, Jesse. Like, luckily you and I got to see, the 94 championship, and we've seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl. But and we've seen a lot of good 49ers team. I mean, you talked about that 98 team. I love some of those Jeff Garcia teams. They were fun to watch, right? They were always competitive. Obviously, we talked about the Harbaugh era. But I don't think I've been as confident in the 49ers as I am this year. Like I heard you talk about it, I think on your post-game show when I checked it out for a little bit. But I woke up on Sunday and I felt zero anxiety. Like, there wasn't a doubt in my mind that the 49ers weren't going to win. And for that to be the toughest matchup and not have any doubts, like, I haven't felt that way in quite some time. You ain't got to live that down, bro. You're not going to live that down.
No, that's fine. That's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying. I know. Brother Bob's not going to let me live it down. Exactly. We are a cheat code. Bengals find out I hate you. He says, Sunil, I finally agree. Kyle is in his bag.
It's about time, brother. Just let me get to the barbecue. All I want is a plate, bro. Just let me get a plate, brother Bob. Don't take it away from me, because usually you be giving me a compliment and 2 seconds later you take that plate away.
Well, just don't talk the rest of the show and he'll be fine. You say anything, he's calling you out. Soul Certified says, here's $1.99. I appreciate you, Soul Certified. And then Keith says, how many times have y'all seen Shanahan cursing under his sheet this year? He just seems comfortable as a coach. I agree. And the little bit that we've seen him, like, quote unquote cursing, I don't think it's because he's mad at a player. It's like something happened. He was upset this week. He felt like they could have put up more points, which, okay.
He wants that 70.
Scored more than 21 in the first half. Sure.
He wants that 70 that Mike McDaniels put up. He don't like his protege putting up that many points over him.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Okay, we've done the awards. We've talked through the best teams since. What did we learn? Mason Mitchell, Randy Gregory. Every week you've got one of these. Every single week you've got one of these. Last week I feel like I aced the test. The week before wasn't my best stuff. But what is the mystery question this week, Sunil?
So in the tradition of, I guess, this week's show, where we're going back into history and putting this team against historic teams for the 49ers. I'm wearing the jersey of one Fred Warner. He had obviously an epic game, the trifecta, interception, forced fumble, sack. I think it is safe to say he is by far the best middle linebacker in the game. I think now there's no debate. I don't think anybody even comes close to that. 49ers have had some pretty great linebackers in their time. I think my first question is, who would you say is the greatest linebacker the 49ers have ever had? Would you say Patrick Willis?
Yeah, I'd probably have to say Patrick Willis.
I agree. What does Fred Warner have to do to overtake Patrick Willis as the greatest linebacker in 49er history? And the fact that I made you lean back, I'm already liking this question.
Man. I mean, Patrick. These are so hard. And this is why I struggled with saying that this team is better than the 98 team, is because there's nostalgia with some of this stuff. And man, Patrick Willis was just so damn good. I mean, the only thing I can say is longevity, probably. And I think he's probably going to be able to get there. The game's just, it's crazy how much the game can change in a 10-year time span. Is it not? I mean, let's look at the game in the early 2010s, how much more smash mouth it was overall. What types of linebackers were good then? Patrick Willis was kind of like the bridging of the gap to the new age linebackers, where he was still bigger like than the linebackers today, but he just had so much closing speed and instincts that it was like, man, you need a different level. I guess Ray Lewis was kind of the beginning of that, and then it was him and Kuechly, Bobby Wagner as well, still playing at a high level. But now linebackers are so much lighter. They are so much more versatile in the passing game. It's just the expectations from the linebackers are very different than what they were even 10 years ago. So, but to answer the question, I think really it's just longevity.
Take longevity out. We got to go at prime. What would you need? The best Patrick Willis, the best Fred, like what would the best Fred Warner need to do that you start him over Patrick Willis on your all-time 49er team?
I mean, to start in the conversation, this man's going to have to be first team All Pro 4 or 5 times to even be there. I mean, that's what Patrick Willis does. I mean, how many times was he a first team All Pro? 5 times? I mean, that's okay. Defensive player of the year. If he gets a defensive player of the year, I'll probably give him the nod. You give me 3 All Pros and a defensive player of the year, or if you're just taking one single year, it has to be a defensive player of the year.
Okay,
that's what it would have to be. Defensive player of the year.
I think obviously when you're judging these two, Fred Warner is, I think he would get the edge when it comes to in the pass game, right? He has way more ball skills than Patrick Willis. I think he's a better cover linebacker. But Patrick Willis was so dominant behind the line of scrimmage, man. Like, he was a tackling machine. He would disrupt. I think what I want to see out of Fred Warner is what we saw this week, him in the backfield more. That's what I want to see. If he could consistently, if he could put up 5-6 sacks, which is like one every other game, one every 2-3 games, get a sack, it's going to be tough to not put him, over Willis just because of how much he could do in the pass game as far as interceptions and just guarding, other teams' weapons. So, yeah, to me, I think it's incredible that we got another linebacker that could even be mentioned in the same sentence. And we're starting to see the evolution of Fred Warner. I think with Wilkes as a more aggressive defensive play caller, he's going to get the opportunity, so we could see him unlock this aspect of his game.
Yeah, and I like the turnovers we saw on Sunday. That's the other thing. I think Fred has not, regardless of why, it's not that he can't or isn't a great player. Maybe it's what he's been asked to do, but it's not like he doesn't force a ton of turnovers or hasn't historically. And when you look at the best year from Patrick Willis was probably 2009. He had 3 interceptions, a touchdown, 3 forced fumbles, and 152 tackles. and was a first-team All-Pro. So he's either going to have to win Defensive Player of the Year or he's going to have to be that complete to even be in the conversation. I mean, Patrick Willis was.
Did he have any sacks that year?
Sacks he had. Hold on, he had 4 sacks.
That's what I'm saying. This dude was 4 sacks.
Led the league in tackles, 3 forced fumbles, a touchdown on defense, and 3 interceptions. I mean, he was phenomenal. Fred Warner's great, but to be in the conversation, he's going to have to be.
That's a year, bro. That's a year, bro.
Yeah.
Who won Defensive Player of the Year that year? Because that's an insane stat line for him not to get that.
I don't even know. Let me look it up, see if I can find it. 2009 DPOY. Let's see. Charles Woodson.
Wow.
Charles Woodson.
So it wasn't even a lineman.
Nope. Here, let's look at the votes. Wow, he didn't even get the votes. He didn't even get hardly any votes. It's because the 49ers weren't elite in 2009, I guess. I don't know, but man, that's crazy. Wow. Okay. Well, he had 9 interceptions and 3 touchdowns, so maybe that's why with 2 sacks. It's a pretty good season. It's a pretty good season too. Either way, that's a really good question. And I think a lot of people are having that question now. I think I heard, forget who it was. I think it was Larry and Grant maybe having the debate, and they're not the only ones. This has kind of been happening now, I think, since the end of last year, which is like the Greenlaw Warner or Bowman, Patrick Willis. Like which tandem would you take? And I like this spin on it because to me, I agree. I mean, I think Willis is bar none the best linebacker, but what do you got to do to get in the conversation? And I think that's it. That's how you get there. That's a tough question. Big City Man says, if we're running 4-3, it's Patrick, Fred, and Navarro. Yeah, could you imagine? Where was it at?
With Greenlaw coming off the bench? That would be wild.
Right. Brandon says Watson is not playing. Yeah,
is that maybe official? Because I've heard.
I don't know that it's official.
I've heard different stories about that.
I wouldn't play if I was him. But he also asked me if Barry Sanders was better than Emmitt Smith, and yeah, unequivocally, yes.
Barry Sanders is better than everybody.
Yeah, it's him and Jim Brown. They're like 1 and 1A. Whoever you choose, I'm fine with. But Emmitt Smith's top 7, 8-ish probably. Keith says he could have put up more points. We pulled the team. Yeah, but he was talking about it at halftime, man. That's the crazy part. He follows up and says Warner's got to win a chip and get to get the status. Yeah,
Willis never won a chip though, so I don't know if it's just a chip. Chip is more about the team.
Enough. Yeah, I don't think that's enough. Willis could play in this era even at a side. Yes, and he would be dominant still. He would be dominant. There's certain players that can play in almost any era, and he is certainly one of them. Ray Lewis is one of them for sure. I mean, we know that because Wagner, who's been very good, not as good as Willis, in my opinion, at his peak, at a very advanced age, has been effective. And he was kind of still in that old era of linebacker. So, or at least the bridging the gap, and he's been fine. So yeah, of course Willis could have. I can't believe Micah didn't know the rivalry is personal. Yeah, what is that, dude? Oh, it's
he knows.
He knew. He's doing
what he's doing what he has to do. Like, he can't sit there and act like the 49ers are that much better than them, because he knows that they still want to win a Super Bowl and they have to go through the 49ers. So they can't sit here and just be like, oh, there's no way we could beat them. He'd be killed by his fan base. He doesn't care what our fan base thinks of him. He cares what his fan base thinks of him.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what that is. But dude,
it's great to see our boys. Man, Debo, that's the dude you want with the mic if you trash talking someone. He knows what he's doing. Like, seeing Demo come out, like, yo, these guys are it's fun to see.
You know what I love? I'm a big body, I pay attention to body language and how people react when they say something and how they react after they say something. And one of the biggest signs of confidence is saying something and then being quiet and waiting for the next person to talk. Deebo Samuel did that when he was asked about the Parsons situation. When Parsons is like, yeah, laugh now, cry later. And he's like, cry later. It might be worse for you next time. It was 42-10 this time. It might be worse from you. And then went quiet, straight-faced, deadpan. You knew he believed it in that moment because he was just basking in it. He was not afraid to say what he said. He believed every word that came out of his mouth. And he's probably right. It could get worse for the Dallas Cowboys if they meet again. So I loved seeing Deebo Samuel and his confidence in that moment. Keith Murphy says Woodson was a dog. He was a dog, man. Woodson. I mean, that era of corners overall, Woodson, Champ Bailey, Revis. I mean, Asante Samuel, Cromartie,
Asamoah.
Yeah, Nnamdi had a couple of years in there. There was some very, very good corners, but yeah, there was some good corners then for sure. That might have been like the most elite corners have ever been across the league. Brother Bob says, I love Fred Warner, but man, P. Willie's a beast. I agree, man. That's the hard part is I don't want to choose because I like them both so much, but if you're putting me on the spot, I have to give you an answer. And man, that's it exactly. I do want to say this. You've seen this all episode. They're a sponsor of mine, Glance LED. I'm going to put the link in the description. If you go to their website, you put in promo code LSS, you'll get 10% off. This thing comes in 3 different sizes. You can program it to say whatever you want. It can show sports scores. It can show weather. It can show news. You can put customization in there. It shows my YouTube channel stats. You can have it show stocks if you want. So whether it's your office, your man cave, wherever you want to put it, there is definitely a spot for this. And if you are a member of the channel, little teaser, if you are a member, there is a bigger size one than this one, pause, that I'll be giving away next month. They're going to be sending one my way. It is the larger version of this that I will be giving away to a member on the channel. So just being a member, you will be entered in, and I will be giving one of these away next month sometime. So appreciate each and every one of you. I will be back tomorrow with Grant. We're doing 49ers After Dark. And then right after that, Behind Enemy Lines with a Browns insider. So make sure that you tap in. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.